Good news for his rivals though. Edwards on row 2 of the grid. Daniel Buxton and Stuart Clark ahead of him. Jason Templeman lines up alongside. Row 3 of the grid, it's Matt Jackson and David Davies. Rick Pearson and Peter Sowerby complete the top 8 ahead of Mark Burton, David Gibson, Jim Edwards Sr. and Ray McDowell. And as the lights go from red to green, it's a brilliant start from Stuart Clark on the outside of the front row. Daniel Buxton a little slower away, has to tuck into second place. And it's the yellow car, chases the red. Jim Edwards Jr. already starting to take a look down the inside though. And he moves up into third place ahead of Jason Templeman. Then it's David Davies and Matt Jackson there making a slow start in 6th place. But he is on the move, trying to switch lines. But already extending his lead at the head of the field. Stuart Clark in the Mardi Gras motorsport car, prepared here at Silverstone, riding with Dennis Bunning as the rest of the field compresses down into the pack. 24th place and 26th on the grid, but he's going to lose it around into the gravel trap. And is he going to keep the engine running down at Beckett's corner? Fires up the engine, he's going to keep the car moving, I think, but Dennis Bunning drops right to the tail of the field, just ahead of the fire tender. And there, perhaps the suspects for that little biff, David Pearson, Graham Oliver. Oh, and that's an unusual place to go off. That is Chris Armeftis, the ex-Greek rally champion. As Dennis Bunning continues at the tail of the field, Armeftis is not going to go any further. And the battle is on at the head of the field. And up into second place goes number 2, Jim Edwards Jr. A stunning move at Bridge Corner, fastest corner on the circuit. Down into third place goes Daniel Buxton. He is now going to have a real fight back. And the question is, can Jim Edwards Jr. close on the race leader, Stuart Clark? The 28-car grid stretched all the way around the Silverstone circuit. 27 cars running. Chris Armeftis out of the race. But at the head of the field, it's Stuart Clark ahead of Jim Edwards, then Daniel Buxton and Matt Jackson closing in on Jason Templeman, and through into that 4th place goes Matt Jackson in the yellow and green car. Templeman drops down to 5th, now ahead of David Davies, the 2 silver cars running in convoy, and the white and blue of Rick Pearson now starting to make a move on the inside of David Gibson, and closing in as well, the red and white of Mark Burton, number 12, also closing in at the tail of the top 10. It really is a 6-car train. Stuart Clark, Jim Edwards and Daniel Buxton perhaps making a break for it now. Behind them, it's Matt Jackson in the yellow and green car, then the 2 silver cars, Jason Templeman and David Davies, pursued by David Gibson, Rick Pearson, Mark Burton, and it is that close at the head of the field. But the question is, can Stuart Clark hold on as across the line, Dennis Bunning crosses the line, 27th and last, the Staffordshire Land Rover dealer, ex-motocrosser, used to ride in the World Motocross Championship with men such as Vic Eastwood, the racing granddad now. Stuart Clark, though, running at the head of the field with Jim Edwards trying to find a way around him, and Edwards goes very tight into Priory Corner, and that is superb judgment by Edwards, but coming back down the inside, Stuart Clark holds on. He's going to have the advantage through Brooklands, but if Edwards can hold on all the way around the outside, and it looks like he has done, he's now got the advantage for the double apex right-hander at Luffield. Great tactical driving by Jim Edwards there. 3 corners it took, but now he's in the lead, and the question is, as Stuart Clark gets forced off the racing line, can Daniel Buxton now close in? 3rd place man Buxton, behind him is Matt Jackson in the yellow and green car, and those 2 are now steaming up on the tail of the red car of Stuart Clark. It's not going to be a dream victory for the local team, Mardi Gras Motorsport. The Mark Fish Motorsport car at the head of the field, but somebody off in the gravel trap. Oh, and that's Mark Burton. Jason Templeman's been delayed. David Gibson is in the kitty litter as well. Down to Beckett's corner, and a lock front wheel there for race leader Jim Edwards, but keeps the car together, runs up onto the curbs at the Innes Island S's. Daniel Buxton closing in on Stuart Clark, but a squeal of tyres. Oh, and very heavy contact there. And that is the man from Norfolk, Bob Smith, spinning to a standstill. Front end damage on his car. A very buckled door for number 4, Ray McDowell, in 10th place. But the battle on for second. Daniel Buxton steams down the inside of Stuart Clark. That is brilliant late braking by Buxton. Can he hold on out of the corner? Because Stuart Clark's coming back at him, gets earlier on the power, switches lines, and it's the inside line now for Buxton at Bridge Corner, and that is going to give him the advantage. He should be able to control the pace of Stuart Clark now. And keeping off that concrete dust, which is run over oil from a blown engine earlier in the afternoon. And now secure in that 2nd place, Daniel Buxton starting to pull away from Stuart Clark. Clark may be working his tyres just a little too hard early in this race. The car losing its edge now. And the question is, he's putting the pressure still on Daniel Buxton, but can Daniel Buxton get his head down and charge? But it looks like Stuart Clark, who's taking the race back to Daniel Buxton, gets a tighter line out of Luffield corner, tucks back into the slipstream, and that is going to force Daniel Buxton to compromise his racing line down into Copse. Watch for the yellow car, diving for the wall just a little earlier than the red one. Now he's extended the advantage. He could actually stay on the Pura racing line. The order is Edwards, Buxton, Clark, Matt Jackson, David Davies, the man from Wales, ahead of Rick Pearson, Peter Selby and Jason Templeman completing the top 8. Templeman fighting back after that earlier delay. And this is a big battle. Rick Pearson closing in on David Davies. The man from Bridgend goes wide, and it's Rick Pearson down the inside, but Davies already fighting back, gets the power in earlier, closing back in on the tail of the number 33 car. Well, David Davies has the only mechanic in Renault Clio Racing who is also a hairdresser. Nick Marley is crew chief, and this is going to be a shortcut up the inside, I think. No, it's not. It's going to be a short back and sides on the 33 car now, because Rick Pearson locks it front wheels, leaves the gap open, and Davies gets the nose back alongside. Nick Pearson, the CEO of a computer company from London, well, he's having to work hard on his programming here, because filling that rear view mirror, number 24, David Davies. And it's a similar battle now for 7th and 8th places. Peter Sowerby and Jason Templeman. Templeman looks one way, then looks the other. He's determined to make up for lost ground. And the battle for 5th and 6th goes on. Davies versus Rick Pearson. This is absolutely brilliant Renault Clio racing, as always in the long tradition of the Renault one-make saloon car races. And again, Rick Pearson takes the tighter line through Luffield corner, builds the speed up now, out through Woodcote, and already taking that tighter line, taking a little bit of a look in the fresh air. David Davies just hoping he can maybe get the run down into Copse corner to take the advantage. Matt Jackson, 4th place in the green and yellow car. Then comes David Davies and Rick Pearson still fighting for 5th and 6th positions. Then 7th and 8th, Peter Sowerby and Jason Templeman. Then it's Jim Edwards Sr., Ray McDowell with that huge dent in the driver's side door. Just look at that damage. Still there though in 10th place ahead of Martin Johnston, and Adrian Churchill, who started 22nd, is now up into 12th place. Brilliant drive by the local man from Silverstone. And it's just as close between Peter Sowerby and Jason Templeman as it is indeed at the head of the field, because Daniel Buxton's making a move on race leader Jim Edwards Jr. And Edwards Jr. goes very high and wide, and somehow Daniel Buxton's managed to keep it under control at the hairpin. He's blocking across the front of Jim Edwards Jr. now, controlling his pace, forcing him wide. Now Edwards Jr. tries to take the inside line, but finds a yellow Clio already there for Bridge Corner. And Daniel Buxton judged that absolutely brilliantly down at the Abbey hairpin. But Jim Edwards Jr. is not going to give up that easily, already a twice winner this season. The championship leader will not like being headed. Daniel Buxton, winner of round 3 of the championship at Thruxton. He is aiming to get back on terms, and this is going to go, I predict, all the way to the checkered flag. 9 of the laps completed, 3 laps to go, and onto the Woodcote grass there goes Buxton, but it does not lift off the throttle pedal. It is still absolutely 100%, 120 miles an hour down the start-finish straight into Copse corner. Throw the cars down a gear on the 6-speed sequential gearbox, the rear wheel up in the air for Buxton. Edwards follows suit, and the two of them pulling well away from Clark. Now let's take another look at that move by Buxton. Absolutely brilliantly judged, because not only did he get down the inside off the racing line, he then got the speed down in the corner. You can see the rear wheel in the air. Perfectly judged, and again Buxton really is driving this car absolutely perfectly. 22 years old from Cheshire, driving a car prepared by Chris Hodgetts Motorsport, but behind him comes Jim Edwards Jr., 32 years of old, driving the Mark Fish Motorsport car, trying to go the long way round, and Buxton again's got that inside line. The rear wheel goes into the air at the Abbey hairpin, but look at the speed of Edwards out. But once again, he finds that Buxton's positioned that Clio absolutely perfectly. The only way for him to go is the long way round into Bridge Corner, and that is not normally the quickest way. Buxton again holds the position, now taking a very tight line. Edwards tries to go even tighter, but there's oil on the track there. The concrete dust flies, and no grip on the brakes for Jim Edwards Jr. He's got to find another strategy yet again. Through the left-hander at Brooklands, now the double apex right-hander at Luffield. Balance the car on the power, 3rd gear. Feeding the power in, trying not to let the car run too wide on the exit, and using every inch of the curbs. Buxton once again absolutely flying here. but Jim Edwards Jr. tracking him every inch of the way, waiting for a mistake, waiting for a gap. Still in third place, Stuart Clark ahead of Matt Jackson and Rick Pearson and David Davies fighting their battle. But Jim Edwards Jr. again carrying a huge amount of speed through Copse Corner. His car well up on three wheels this time. And the battle's going on all the way up and down the field. It's just as close for 15th place. Gary Townsend from Rugby, Fraser Powell from Weybridge, absolutely flat out on the limit, and somebody's over the limit. Oh, and that's number 4 again. That is Ray McDowell, the man with the big dent in the left side, and maybe the car's handling's not very good. Rejoins right in the middle of a gaggle of cars. They all take avoiding action. And that promotes up to 10th place, number 88, Henry Taylor, but he's going to have to fight for that place. Simon Clark is right on his rear bumper as well. Simon Clark in the number 5 car. Absolutely brilliant racing all the way up and down the field, but what an example at the head of the field. The leaders are on the last lap. Edwards only has 3 corners, and this is where he's making his move. Sees a gap down the inside of Priory Corner. Both the cars slide wide. Buxton's on the dirt, and that really is do or die from Jim Edwards Jr. and he hasn't got through yet. Buxton is still there alongside him. But the inside line for Luffield now, that should give Edwards the advantage. He should be able to get on the power earlier now. He's going to run right up onto the curbs, and Buxton's not giving way. The whole contact between the 2 cars. Buxton springboards back on the track, loses his mirror, and it's absolutely head to the line. And the 2 cars side by side at the checkered flag. Absolutely brilliant at Silverstone. The crowd on their feet. And Jim Edwards Jr. given the same time as Daniel Buxton, but the stewards, would you believe it, found by the thickness of the paint, Jim Edwards Jr. the winner.
By its nature, the Renaults, the one-make championship is so close that you can't have a motor race without rubbing and bumping around. But obviously, with the drivers at the front, you can trust each other and respect each other, and you know how far you can push each other. And it worked out fine for me today, but on the next meeting, if the same situation occurred, then it could be Daniel's day.
And quicks in testing, quicks in qualifying, and basically took a bit of time to get up to speed. He's had a few people to overtake, but thought I'd just done enough to deserve the victory. But that's racing, isn't it?
Well, that's racing, and what racing. Jim Edwards Jr. now leads the championship by 65 points from Daniel Buxton. Jim Edwards Sr. still a distant third ahead of Rick Pearson, David Davies and Henry Taylor. But what a finish for the race leaders. Jim Edwards and Daniel Buxton, almost a dead heat.